Welcome back to Cheche, the program where opinion counts. Today's guests are Balambala MP and member of PAC, the Honorable Abdikadir Aden. He's from ODM and CORD. We also have Mifika Linturi, the Gembe South Member of Parliament. He's on the Public Investments Committee and is affiliated to TNA and the Jubilee Coalition. So we've been talking about the questionable management of public finances. And what we see as a consequence of these questions is yesterday the arrest of a journalist. And earlier in the week, we saw the leader, one of the parliamentary leaders, talking about instituting proceedings against the controller of the budget. And so if we're concerned about corruption in the country, what are you as parliamentarians doing to protect the people who blow the whistle?
Let me say, first of all, that the arrest of John Ngirachu was very, very unfortunate, unacceptable in modern day Kenya. Indeed, I do not see how and why in this day and age that kind of an act can be allowed. It's very retrogressive. It should not be accepted, and the happening of it was very, very wrong. I saw some of my colleagues, and I'm glad at least the majority leader has said that he went and protested about the arrest of Ngirachu. I don't think it should be left at that, because that kind of action actually amounts to taking away the hard-earned freedom of speech.
So if we extend the action, are we going to see the CS, Mr. Nkaiseri, being called to account for that action?
In all honesty, I want to believe yes. I think that is not acceptable at all. And what also I wondered with very much is the Constitution is very clear on who should do investigations and who should arrest. When a CS stands out there and says, I have ordered the arrest of that particular individual, it's very, very worrying. And I mentioned, I was reading in the paper this morning, my good brother, the majority leader, said he went to the minister and they agreed that he should be released. So now I wonder who in Kenya then is driving the agenda of who to arrest and who to release.
But to make matters worse, the minister had a press conference yesterday saying that anybody who is going to talk about corruption, if you have evidence, go and give the police. That you do it at your own risk, now muzzling us from talking about corruption.
Correct. And I think
now this minister, he comes from the background of ODM. and one should have expected them to behave rationally. He has a press person there, Konmwana Joka, as his personal assistant, who knows these things.
I think, I think if I have a lot of respect for CS Nkaiseri, being a colleague of ours, being a person who I have known very closely. I want to believe that he was misadvised on this particular issue.
Was he misadvised, or does it have to do with the fact that his ministry also had questions surrounding their expenditure?
Yes, that is true, and indeed it's true that the committee at some point had to sit in camera. But what is going to prove John Ngirachu's view is what is in Hansard of Parliament. I want to ask John Ngirachu and and his people to go and ask for the Hansard information, which is a public information. What we discussed in the committee, the stage before which the journalists were asked to leave the room. Indeed, whatever I have read in the media and whatever I have read that was written about this whole issue had absolutely nothing to do with anything that was said in camera. Coming to the issue of the controller of budget.
No, hang on, let's be clear. What you're saying is that the journalist was able to obtain confidential information and publish it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, no. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is that, the committee proceedings are open.
Yes.
They are open to the journalists. And there were very many, batteries of the journalists at that particular place. And there was a lot of discussion on the open, and at which point the committee was asked to go into private talk. What I have read in the media, in the print media in the last few days, unless I have missed an article which was so serious, which is probably what I have missed, anything that I have read in there was a general view of John on what was discussed in the open. And that's why I tell him, go and get the Hansard report, and that will prove it right. I want to mention about the issue of the controller of budget, which you mentioned. The controller of budget is a person by law required to approve all payments out of the consolidated fund. She was very categorical, she was very clear. She came out and said that certain amounts of the Eurobond money was removed out of that whichever account where it was without her approval for that money to be paid out. That money was put into an account irregularly in the first place out there, which in my view, or according to the Constitution, all monies received for the public should go to the consolidated account before they are taken anywhere else. And once they are in the consolidated account, the control of budget is supposed to sign and approve their payments. Now, saying that we will hold her, we will try and harass her for standing her grounds to say that I did not approve certain payments out of that particular foreign account will be very, very unfortunate, and itself will be an attempt.
It's already happened.
Yeah, it will itself amount to an attempt to make sure that there is no transparency.
Yes, but the question is, what do you do in those situations? Because clearly she's being harassed.
I think that will be very unacceptable if that kind of thing...
But, I also think, Uluwak, that public officials ought to exercise their mandate and independence. And
she is an independent...
and if you do that, I mean, why should you succumb to intimidation, for example, by the executive?
Well, why should she be intimidated?
And for example,
in the first place?
If she has done the right thing, and she should come out and be outspoken about it. Now, the problem of people who do things, then you say, look, okay, come and explain what happened. And then they take off again. Why should that? The contradiction is a bit strange.
Mr. Venturi, you made the point about people having needing to earn livings and having families to protect. And certainly in this country we have seen people go on air claiming that they've been harassed and their families have been harassed. And so the question to the parliamentarians here is, how do you protect such people? If we accept that there are people within the system who are upstanding, patriotic Kenyans who want to do the best for the country, and when they try to do their best for the country, they're accused of maligning the image of the country.
So, but before I get to that question, allow me share my thoughts about, I am a believer in the freedom of press, and I have a lot of respect for the media, because they do a very serious critical role in informing the public and providing oversight. And in such a country where we are now, if we didn't have a vibrant media, then this country can easily slip the wrong direction. One, I need to really remind in Kaiseri, he's a colleague, we were in the 10th Parliament together and we worked closely, that we will not allow him to take this country back to the old days. And I think, as his former predecessor said, or talked about crossing the line, he's also crossing the line. Because when you look, I think, at Article 239, the police can only, or the Inspector General of Police cannot be directed by anybody other than the DPP. The Director of Public Prosecutions is the only person who is directed by law to direct the ING to conduct investigations on anybody or do anything. So when Kaiseri honestly says arrest so and so, that is a usurping power that it doesn't have. And the problem now is I am not familiar with the standing orders of the police, and having maybe probably the procedures when they talk about that. No, they are standing police orders. Where by now, when you get a command from your boss, then you are bound to act that way. So what I am saying is wrong. He must defend the Constitution. He's what to do it. Whatever he's doing is wrong. That I do not agree with him. Number two is that let us not forget the issues to do about media freedom. Article 33, 35 on the freedom of the press, the freedom of the access to information is so clear. There is nothing to hide these days. And this extent of trying to intimidate anyone, if you are talking about the corruption, then don't say out there, go and give information. For God's sake, let them understand that part of the oversight role of the media and the members of parliament and the enemy is to whistle blow. It's to blow the whistle. And that's why even the last parliament you came about with the Witness Protection Act to really cushion, to provide some safeguards for these particular people. So
but it was the same parliament though that was trying to curtail journalists' working space.
With all due respect, I have said many times, we have a parliament, and I have a personal problem with the current parliament. Because I serve in that parliament, but I don't find ourselves really living to the core of that particular office. I am saying this because when you see the behavior of members of parliament, and especially those from Jubilee, you know, we have taken ourselves to be the gatekeepers, to be the watchmen of the executive, even on matters that really do not require any influence from the executive. You want to start asking, what is the president saying? What is the deputy president saying? What is the opinion
that is what I'm saying,
of the DP,
that is Moyism.
The majority leader?
Yes.
And this is wrong. So we're asking members of parliament to understand, when the framers of the constitution decided to share power vertically and horizontally. Vertically is national and county, and the vertically is the executive and the judiciary and the members of parliament, is because parliament is more superior than the executive and the judiciary.
That's true.
Because even when you look at how it is structured in the constitution, parliament comes under chapter 8, executive 9, and the other one 10. And when you look at the beginning, the first clause of the constitution, the article 1, is sovereignty of the people. And that sovereign power is only exercised through democratically elected representatives. So as parliament, we must remember that our core duty as a parliament is to deliberate and to look at issues that touch on the Mwananchi, defend the Mwananchi, make sure that the Mwananchi...
Maybe you need to give this lesson to the parliamentary group meeting of Jubilee.
Yes.
Are you meeting soon to look at these issues?
Actually, let's stay with the issue of the protection of whistleblowers, because you've talked about the witness protection program, and you've talked about the possibility that the PS Mangiti may have been trying to whistleblow. So in the situation where there are people within the ministries who see something going on and they would like to divulge it, what should they do?
I think there is paying a price of getting into prison or being put in for 12 hours for giving information that can assist this country, in my view, is worth the price paying. When we were being put in during Moi's era, you know, in 16 cases, we were permanently in the streets throwing stones and saying Kenya must revert to a multi-party democracy. We paid for this, and you remember, even getting this constitution, people had to pay a price for it. So if this system or our current Jubilee administration wants to get us there, then we will resist it with the necessary force that is required, because you can't suppress people forever. For example, we must be very careful on where we are ending to. Kenya is a multi-party democracy, but you find there are other issues now that saying let's forget all parties and then let's come together. I believe we want to grow democracy, allow many people to have a divergent opinion as possible. If then even if we go there, then how do we take interest of everyone? As to that about protection of political rights, how do we really balance these things? So Kenyans have a responsibility. Let not every Kenya be a friend that in Kaisari has ended this indeed, and now when you have reasons to believe that the KCPE or KTSE examinations were leaked out, then you want to be suppressed not to say it. We will not be safe in Kenya. So I think let's be open, let us be forthright, let's talk about it. We talk about it despite being in Jubilee.
Mutegi, you were making the point that the country seems to be reverting to the Moi days.
Yes, if you see that meeting that Moya talked about, that before you release the information you must channel through a system, that they're being muzzled. The PSs and the CSs are being told now you can't do that. This business of Kaiseri saying if you talk about the corruption you will be held responsible. What is that? That is Moyism. They're taking us back to where when you speak you wonder who is next? Who is looking at
But what do you make of the fact that he's quoted in the papers today saying that there are plots to destabilize the country and magnifying corruption
because of what was written in the foreign press?
Yeah, let me say that. Let me say that if the CS Kaiseri has any reliable information, factual information, that there are indeed people with agenda to undermine the country, sovereignty of the country, that's what we are talking about. But it should not be, it is very, very clear when you say that whistleblowing on corruption is not a threat to the government. No. It's not a threat to the sovereignty of the country. In fact, if the whistleblower's fact is so big that it shames the government and clearly brings out factual stealing, which is linked from tip to top, then the government in other jurisdictions, what we have seen is they resign and step aside, and the country goes into fresh elections.
Okay. The most embarrassing thing is that the American ambassador.
Or people leave their positions, the positions that they hold.
We'll come to that.
Let me also say something.
I'm saying about American ambassador.
It's very careless.
The way I'm saying this Moism. The other day we saw embassies joining together to issue a statement about NGOs. Yesterday or the day before, we had American ambassadors say they are going to impose sanctions against those people who are corrupt. This is very shameful for the government. We are going back to Moism when you used to have embassies fighting with us about corruption and about multipartyism. That's what I'm saying. We are going back.
Yeah, I think this retrogressive laws. I want to make a point on on these laws. Remember when the House of Parliament descended into anarchy on the 18th of December. Indeed, some of the reasons that brought that pain was because of the fact that we saw that the government was headed in that direction. And personally, one of the things I was very passionate to protect on that particular day, not to happen, was the blackout which was going to be given to the media houses and the media personnel. Actually, as a matter of fact, what it appears to me now is that even though the High Court nullified that particular piece of law as being bad law, indeed that retrogressive the implementation of that law appears to be in place.
Mr. Aiden, this is hypocrisy though, because when we think about the media law that you tried to introduce within the National Assembly, sponsored by Aiden Kainan, there was an outcry. He then tried to withdraw the offensive clauses, and on the floor of Parliament, your colleagues, including colleagues from ODM, the chair of your Public Accounts Committee, you voted to put those clauses back in. You said that the media needed to be reined in. So how do you come here and start telling us that the media needs to be protected? You protect the media when it suits you.
Let me tell you one thing very clearly, Woodwork. What is there is that that particular piece of legislation which Kainan had was not a code-driven legislation. It was actually a legislation driven by the Parliamentary Service Commission. Yes.
What difference does it make? You're all in Parliament.
Okay, the difference that it makes is that indeed it was not one, as I would just want to correct your view, that it had nothing to do with code or ODM or anybody. And that the point that I'm making is that you are all alike, whether you're code or Jubilee. When it comes to your interests being protected, you gang up on the media. Not at all. Let me tell you clearly that in that particular instance, there might have been one or two individuals who voted in that particular direction. Just like the time when we were fighting the draconian laws which was being introduced back in December, I had one or two individuals from the Jubilee side who was very much on our viewpoint, who was against that particular piece of legislation. So the fact that an individual or two from the Code Coalition put their views in favor of that particular bill does not mean that that bill represents the position of Code. Ours is the same, that we want clear rights as per the Constitution to be given to the media, so that we have and enjoy the freedom of whistleblowing. You know, some of the big I want to tell you, some of the big scandals in this world, in governments, were actually unearthed by investigative journalists.
That's
so really we need to encourage more of that.
Thank you. You've made your point, Mutegi, and David, you're skeptical. Why?
Well, I guess, members of Parliament are at liberty to choose and vote according to their
conscience, if they have one,
at that particular time. And they have been quite unhappy with what the media has done occasionally to them. As an institution, that class action sometimes as issued from members of Parliament. But, I think we're in agreement that any attempt to curb the press from doing its work is retrogressive, is unconstitutional, especially under our current constitution, and flies in the face of all the advances we're making in protecting human rights and freedom of the media. But I wanted to tie in this. I'm having a happy opportunity here to have Linturi with us, and coming to the House again is another motion to impeach the CS WAIGURU in relation to this whole saga, the devolution, corruption allegations. And her attempt to dissociate herself from the rot within the ministry, where does the responsibility of the presiding minister end in terms of oversight over ministries? We talked about the CS, the PS owning as the accounting officer, and then we went up to that extent. But so where does it leave the CS? Are we agreed that then she's innocent, you know, it wasn't me?
Is that my question?
Yes, sir.
You're trying to...
But are you going to... Where are you casting your vote this time?
You're trying to impeach her yourself.
Yes, you were the first person to try to impeach Ms. WAIGURU.
Yes.
Yes, I did. And I am sure I was very clear from the beginning why I was doing it. And in fact, and I have been allowed to get the matter to the floor. I think most of the problems we find ourselves in today...
Who disallowed you?
The matter came to the floor.
Just a minute.
No, probably will not be there. And I think, you know, we also cannot afford to feel ignorant. Because when you look at what Ketere is saying, and I have come out to say very clearly that if WAIGURU was just like any other minister, should have gone long time ago.
So what do you mean she's not like any other minister then?
Of course, she's not just like anybody else. Because any other minister who was suspected, even with the slightest allegation that there was corruption in her ministry, are not in office. That's why Kosgei is not office, Gilu is not in office, Chirichiri are not there. These are inferior beings, right? So because this is a super lady, and she has all the protection that despite the noise that you make in this country, she will continue being there. And you know, I am a believer also in...
Before you go into what you believe...
How special? Who stopped you from... How special?
And who hang on. Who stopped you from your impeachment motion the first time around? What happened?
Let me tell you, I don't think I need to believe so much on this.
No,
because
like
even if you went on answer...
No, sir.
Yes.
You're accusing various ministries of corruption.
Yes.
And if we remember correctly, we were on air when there should have been a breakfast to get your signatures in place for the impeachment motion.
Yes.
I believe you didn't turn up for that breakfast, and your motion then, you know, dissolved. You tell us what happened in the interest of accountability, in the interest of fair standards, so that you're not holding the other side's standards that you yourself cannot uphold.
I think early in the month, I think 2 months ago, I made a personal statement in Parliament.
Okay, we
that was properly.
Give us a nutshell in a summary so that we can come to the current one. That was just history.
For the beauty, for the benefits of
I
our
cannot
viewers.
be professing issues of accountability when I am not. And when I decided to run for political office after the promulgation of the new constitution, I very well knew that I must also accountable. For own actions. And I am never afraid of trying to tell the truth.
Okay, so tell us the truth.
And the truth is that yes, it is true, we had all the necessary signatures. The motion had been slated for debate, right? There was a lot of goodwill from the public, but there was a lot of discontent within the executive in terms of whether this motion should be discussed or not. Remember, in the formation of the Jubilee coalition, I was a serious player. So we had to sit down and discuss on the pros and cons, on the probability of allowing, that time ODM and account and come up with a mass action thing about, was it Okoa Kenya or something, and we said the timing of this motion is ill-advised, it's not good. Because if we do this now, then it means we are bringing down government. And the best thing to do is Linturi go slow on this thing, watch and eye. You know, when the CEO of a country sits down with you, when he sits down with you to discuss on these particular issues and coming from the same background, you really understand that we must, whatever decision we make must be for the good of the country. So at that particular time, it meant good. It meant well. So right? It means
so I got money to
never on earth. If I took money, let me tell you, I was in. You can go and check in Naivasha. That's why I was sitting watching news. A citizen was trying to show me flying to South Africa. You can check my passport. I never went anywhere.
So what
I
just went and you had a chat with the president.
I sat that particular people with the people that matter.
Okay.
In
all right,
country.
so you succumbed to pressure, you're persuaded to withdraw the motion. It was not in the interest of the executive, not in the country, but in the interest of the executive, so you succumbed to the executive pressure. Let's agree, that's okay. I mean, it's a possibility, and that's fine politically. Now, let's look at the current scenario. Another motion is coming forth, but Mikadi wants to say something.
On that particular one, my good brother, on that day, the motion was on the floor, but he wasn't on the floor. That's basically what happened, and I'm happy he has owned up to that. Where we have a challenge with our colleagues on the Jubilee side is this. Indeed, I know he's a very committed person in fighting corruption. And earlier in his words, he talked how Parliament should be independent from the executive. But now here is a case in point, Mheshimiwa, where you yourself was actually a living example of how executives is putting undue pressure on Parliament. I'm sure he had all the right intentions. I'm sure he has all the right intentions for this country. But the challenge where we have now is that we have got the executive literally controlling Parliament with a remote control.
And here Linturi just said that, you know, in the case of Agnes, she can sacrifice a few months and go and
a few hours, yes.
But Linturi could not sacrifice being in bad books with the executive to pursue what was in the public good.
Let me tell you, Makali, right? No, it's not. Let me tell you, I am willing to pay any price to make sure that this country goes the right way. To expose and bring issues that are not.
You feel embarrassed over that?
I feel very embarrassed when I remember that this thing I should have defied the boss. I should have told them now on this particular matter.
I think this is actually a very good opportunity. For you to say sorry to Kenya.
Exactly.
Because
let me tell you, I am waiting for that particular day when this motion gets the floor. Because for the second time, I will be explaining the country what happened. And to clear my conscience, that is why I am a signatory to that motion. That's why I'm the person to second. That is not only contributing. I'm the person to second that motion. And this time, there won't be intimidation.
What has changed now?
No, we will talk about what has changed after the break. We have to take a break now. Cheche, we're live on Citizen TV. We'll be back after this break.